but I want to take you back to Chrystal's last movements on Friday morning, at least as several of the text messages suggest. She left her boyfriend's house to pick up her kids, who were at her ex-husband's house. And on the way, about 10 minutes into the trip, both her boyfriend and her uncle got a text message with a photo of a billboard advertising Chrystal and her business.
38-year-old Chrystal McDowell had a difficult start in life. Her parents died when she was young, and she was divorced her husband. But despite that, according to one of her last Facebook posts on August 25th, 2017, she was the happiest she'd ever been. Her happiness was no doubt down to her 2 beautiful children and the fact that she had just started dating a man she really liked. They had made plans for the future. They were due to go to Belgium together the following month. Her career was going well too. Chrystal was a successful realtor in the Baytown area where she lived in Texas, in the United States. Before that, she worked as a flight attendant for 10 years. At that point, Chrystal thought life couldn't get much better. In June of 2017, Chrystal had finalized her divorce to Stephen. They were married for 10 years, but things were not going well. They had not been great since the beginning, and in the end, Chrystal just didn't love Stephen anymore. She was the one in the relationship who made the money. She was bright and driven and wanted to succeed at everything she did. She really wanted to make a great home for their children, one that was happy. She agreed to share custody with Stephen. Regardless of whether they were together or not, he was their father, and she wanted him to be in their lives. Things were amicable, too, after the divorce. Chrystal helped Stephen buy a house, and he allowed her to live there while her own house was being remodeled. It seemed like they had worked out how to parent their children in a grown-up and civilized way. So when Chrystal went missing on the 25th of August, 2017, it didn't make sense. That morning, she told her boyfriend, Paul Hargrave, that she was going over to Stephen's house in nearby Mount Bellevue to collect the children. She left Paul's house early that morning. It was around 7:10. The children had slept in Stephen's house that night before, and she had told Paul that she was due to collect the children before Stephen went to work that day. Chrystal had been due to show a property that morning for work, and a closing that afternoon.
But at 7:27 a.m., that was the last anyone heard from Chrystal. Halfway between her boyfriend's house and her ex-husband's house, this is what they found. Chrystal's car at a Motel 6 in the parking lot, submerged in the floodwaters. And that must have been at least part of the reason the sheriff said this.
As the sheriff, I will tell you that I personally think that there is some wrongdoing in this. I think there is some suspicious nature. I don't think that she's left on her own. I think that there is obviously some foul play at this point.
Paul tried to get a hold of Chrystal later that day, but she stopped answering his calls and text messages, so he reached out to her uncle, Jeff Walters. Jeff hadn't heard from her either. Jeff was extremely close to Chrystal as he raised her after her parents died when she was just 11. Stephen and Chrystal didn't make it to the house. Stephen said Chrystal did not make it to the house that day, and her family reported her missing the next day. Stephen said he got a text message from her at 7:01 a.m., which said, "On my way, do you have water? Looks like I may stay here with the kids. It seems like just rain." Hurricane Harvey was a Category 4 hurricane that hit Texas and Louisiana in August of 2017. It was the first major hurricane to hit the United States since 2005, and the first major hurricane to hit southern Texas since 1970. Harvey was the costliest natural disaster in Texas at the time, costing $125 billion in damage. It was also the wettest tropical cyclone on record in the United States, with peak accumulations of 60.58 inches of rain in Nederland, Texas. Harvey made landfall near Rockport, Texas on August 25, 2017. It had wind gusts exceeding 150 miles per hour and caused catastrophic flooding. The flooding inundated hundreds of thousands of homes, displaced more than 30,000 people, and prompted more than 17,000 rescues. The flooding also flooded up to 500,000 cars. Harvey was tied with Hurricane Katrina as the costliest tropical cyclone on record. Harvey caused at least $51.177 billion in damage in Texas alone. Stephen then told Jeff that he received another text saying that she changed her mind, planned to collect the children and take them to Dallas, but she never arrived. None of them had heard from her. Unfortunately, due to weather conditions, a normal and thorough search would not take place. Hurricane Harvey hit the area and it was flooded, and as a result, roads were closed and some areas were inaccessible. The weather did not stop Chrystal's friends and family, however, from searching. Even though some of their own homes and cars had flooded, they looked everywhere they could for her, but there was no sign of her anywhere.
Chrystal McDowell has really existed just like this, in photographs, just like so many other missing people before her. That is until we found a video of her 33rd birthday. Her husband took her to a place called Skydive Spaceland. And for the first time, we are hearing Chrystal's voice, and we are really seeing Chrystal's spirit. And we're also getting to know the woman that so many people are right now trying to find.
Hey, Chrystal, how you doing?
Great, how
Good.
are you?
I'm doing fantastic. What are you doing today?
About to jump out of a perfectly
Jumping
good airplane.
out of a plane, making your first skydive. Whose idea was this? Idea? So if she gets hurt, I'm blaming you, all right, buddy?
He has a really good life insurance policy.
Oh, cool, perfect. Are you covered in that policy?
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay, so tell me about your jump. How high are we going?
We're going to 14,000 feet.
So it's a little over 2.5 miles above where we're standing right now. How fast do we fall on the way down?
120 miles per hour.
You ever drive that fast?
Maybe.
Maybe? Well, don't show this video any cops, right? So you're gonna open the parachute today, aren't you? At what altitude does that happen?
6,000 feet.
So how do you know when we're at 6,000 feet? How can you tell?
Look at my altimeter.
Altimeter, you got it. Boom. All right, well, it sounds like you got this all figured out. Is there anything you want to say before we get on the airplane?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Let's do this.
Have fun. I'll meet you on the plane.
All right, thank you.
You're looking a little shaky there. You feeling okay?
Think so.
Think so? Uh-oh. I think Matthew broke your harness. So how high are we right now?
I don't know. We're going to go to 14,000
No, but how high are we right now? What does that say?
Oh, 6,000 feet.
6,000 feet. So let's pretend like we're in free fall. What are you supposed to do at 6,000 feet?
Hold the cord.
Hold the parachute, right? Save Matthew's life for me. Honestly, he's not very good at this, so that's why we made you go with him, to make sure he does okay.
I got your back.
All right, awesome. So how's the view?
Beautiful.
We're kind of getting up there. Is there anything else you want to say before we chuck you out of this plane?
No, I think I can do it.
Okay.
I have to push me, but that's okay.
I think Matthew can handle that.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, good luck. I'll meet you outside, all right? Birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Chrystal. Happy birthday to you.
I totally did it.
How was
I
skydiving?
did it punk out like a sissy girl.
You skydived like a man.
I did.
It was great.
It was so fun. I
What was
can't
the
wait
best
to do it
part?
again. The whole thing was the
whole
best
thing?
part. Yeah.
Matthew, because
It
he's
was
just the
fun.
greatest instructor that the world has ever known. Nice work. So how was your parachute ride?
It was really a lot of fun.
Yeah, a little more relaxing side of skydiving. Hey, look, your husband lived too. What a bonus!
Yay, that was so fun.
So, to all your friends and family that just saw your video, what do you want to tell them about skydiving?
Totally have to do it.
They gotta try it, right?
Try it.
So,
I specifically wanted to show you that clip because it brought Chrystal to life. It brought her personality out, and I wanted you to see that this is not just a normal person. This is someone's mother, someone's daughter, someone's niece, someone's best friend, and someone's lover. Police questioned Paul as he was seemingly the last person that saw Chrystal. He told them they should question Stephen. He said that Chrystal was scared about Stephen finding out about their relationship. While they were questioning a number of people, police continued investigating and searching for other evidence. Authorities tracked down a final ping from Chrystal's cell phone in a marshy part of Baytown and found Chrystal's flooded car days later at a Motel 6 near Interstate 10. Police called in more people for questioning. There was still one person they needed to question, and that was Stephen. Chrystal and Stephen seemed to be in a good place when Chrystal went missing, but when they looked deeper into the matters, they discovered everything may not have been as it seemed. In fact, Chrystal had told others that when the matter of getting divorced had first been addressed, Stephen threatened to kill himself. Chrystal and even the children. He had a dark and sinister side. He had first threatened to kill himself just 1 year after they had married, as Chrystal wanted to leave him then. But somehow they seemed to move on from the divorce and share custody of the children. It appeared that Stephen was not so happy when he recently discovered that Chrystal planned to go on a cruise with her new boyfriend. He didn't like that they were happy together. The cruise had originally been planned for her, Stephen, and the children, and Jeff to go on. Chrystal invited Paul to go too, but he thought it would be awkward with both of him and Stephen on it. So Chrystal asked Stephen not to go. She told Paul that he was really upset about it. Chrystal confided in a friend that she feared Stephen and believed that he was following her and tracking her movements. Police got the CCTV footage from the motel from where the car was found and saw a man that resembled Stephen parking it and getting out. CCTV from the garage beside also showed a man who resembled him throwing out what appeared to be clothes, but due to the floods, those bins were emptied. There was also CCTV footage from a man walking under I-10 into Walmart where Stephen purchased a bicycle. When Stephen was questioned by the police, he broke down and confessed. That day, the 25th of August, contrary to what he previously claimed, Chrystal did make it to his house, but they had an argument while the children were asleep upstairs. He was furious that she had stayed out all night at Paul's house. She told Stephen that she didn't love him anymore and didn't want to be with him. At that point, he went up to Chrystal from behind and got her into a chokehold and strangled her. She had not been expecting it and didn't know what was happening. She told Stephen that he was scaring her. That didn't stop him though. He maintained his tight grip until she stopped moving. He then put a bag over her head, tied her up, and put her body in trash bags. Put her in her car. It wasn't until early the next morning while his children were asleep that he drove Chrystal's body to a field. And he also got rid of her car, her phone, and Motel 6 parking lot. He drove the car to the motel, left the key in it, hoping that it would be stolen or flooded.
Hit the cone, okay. All right, and y'all, when we get started, I'm going to tell you right up front, I'm not going to take many questions. I'll take a few, but I still got lots to do, and I got a lot of things to do inside. So, with that being said, all right. First of all, I'm Brian Hawthorne. It's Brian, B-R-I-A-N, Hawthorne, H-A-W-T-H-O-R-N-E, and I'm the Sheriff of Chambers County. On Saturday, September 26th, the Chambers County Sheriff's Office received a call regarding the welfare concern of a 37-year-old Chrystal McDowell, a 4,000 block of Bay Vista Drive in West Chambers County. An immediate investigation began into the whereabouts of Chrystal, and throughout the 2-week extensive investigation, several persons of interest were identified. Sheriff's Office detectives, along with the Texas Rangers and the Attorney General's Office investigators, worked essentially around the clock, and today at 2:45 p.m., Chrystal's body was discovered by the Chambers County Sheriff's detectives and Texas Rangers in a wooded area of West Chambers County. An inquest has been ordered by Justice of the Peace, Precinct 6, Larry Cryer, and Stephen Wayne McDowell, 44, has been arrested, charged with murder, which is a first-degree felony, and booked into the Chambers County Jail with bail to be set by court of competent jurisdiction. I'd like to give special thanks to the District Attorney, Cheryl Leak, and her staff for the many hours of legal guidance and support throughout this investigation. I'll take just a couple of questions and then I've got to step back in.
Do you believe the approaching storm had anything to do with the timing of this?
We don't believe that the storm had anything to do with this crime.
And her children, I understand she was going to pick up her children at her ex-husband's house. Did she ever, did that ever get that far, or did they remain with him? Where were her kids?
Well, currently the kids are under the Department of Family Protective Services, but she did make it to and see her kids that particular day.
And again, I'm sorry, the suspect's relationship to McDowell.
Ex-husband.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, right. With 48 hours, was there a confession in this case? And if so, what drove that up for that?
Still pending in the investigation, and there'll be more details to come out later.
And Sheriff, for you, what is this case all about?
Well, this case was about trying to bring Chrystal McDowell home, and we've made that happen, and we've been able to charge who caused the disappearance. So I'm very proud of my team. I'm very proud of everybody that worked so hard for the last 2 weeks on this case. With that being said, thank you very much.
Did EquiSearch find her, or did you repeat that?
No, the detectives in Texas Rangers found her. EquiSearch was very helpful. They have worked for the last 72 hours assisting us, but in this particular case, she was actually found by detectives in Rangers.
Sheriff, a point of clarification. I've been hearing 38 years old, and you just said 37 years old. Is she?
She's just about to turn 38 because she was 37. All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Hawthorne is with the Chambers County Sheriff's Office. He joins me live right now from Texas. Sheriff, this is not the news that we were hoping to hear. You have been on this case from the very beginning. I guess the first question I have is, how did you get this full confession?
Well, Ashley, the confession, is a combination of a lot of detective work and a lot of interviews. So, as you gather information and you start building your cases and you look at your persons of interest, you tailor your interviews to each individual, and things started coming around for the detectives and the Rangers to start asking a lot more questions of Steve McDowell.
So can you, and I'm going to press you, I understand you're still now headed towards a murder case with this man, so I get it if you can't answer, but I'm going to go anyway. Can you give me the answer to the mystery of how her Mercedes ended up at that Motel 6, half submerged in water?
Well, I can tell you that he drove it there and then parked it, and it's obvious that it was in the hopes that it would be stolen, like I had told you when we found it. And it probably would have been, just due to the nature of that intersection of the Motel 6 and everything that takes place there off of Interstate 10. But because of the Hurricane Harvey and the floodwaters, nobody would have been able to drive it out of the parking lot. So,
was this timed then? Do you think it was a coincidence that the hurricane was happening as this crime happened, or was this planned so that there'd be this great cover of being able to dump a car in an area where it might get stolen, might get flooded?
No, I think it's completely coincidental, because I think he would have probably parked it somewhere else had he realized that the floodwaters of Cedar Bayou and essentially receiving 50 inches of rain was going to flood the entire hotel and that entire part of town. So I think it was coincidental.
So if he dropped that car at the Motel 6, he lived about, 2.5, 3 miles away. Did he have another vehicle there?
That's part of our investigation right now, and it's not in my best interest to talk about that aspect of the investigation.
So let's get to that morning when Chrystal had sent text messages sort of en route to Steve's house. We didn't think that she made it, and you definitely do know that she made it. Can you take me to the parts of the investigation you can reveal when she got there? What happened, and what else do you know about what happened in that house with those kids there?
Well, about the only thing that I can say is that she did make it. It appears that the line of text messaging is not fully clear to us, but we do know that she did get there. He told us that she did get there, and that at some point in her encounter with him that morning is when he strangulated her, and we have what we have today.
So ultimately, if she died in that house, she eventually was dumped in the woods. Did he put her body in that Mercedes and then make that trip with her in the Mercedes? Like, give me the sort of connect the dots between her dying in the house and ending up in the woods.
Well, a lot of that is still part of the investigation, is still being documented, but it is our belief that after, the strangulation and the death, he then put her in a car, and we're still documenting exactly which vehicle it is, but it's my belief it is the Mercedes, and then drove her to this kind of a it's not, I wouldn't say deserted, but it is not a frequented area by the public, and had that ability, and they did this in the middle of the night, early in the morning, where there would not have been any type of traffic, and essentially ditched the body deep into the woods to where it was very.
Stephen claimed that he killed Chrystal as a result of sudden passion. In Texas, this means that the punishment for this could be as little as 2 years in prison. Stephen gave evidence to the trial. He told the court that he did not intend to kill Chrystal and that he hugged her to death after they had sex. The jury did not believe him, and after just 3.5 hours of deliberations, they found him guilty of murder. They believed he had made the decision to kill her when she told him she didn't love him anymore. If he couldn't have her, then neither could Paul or anyone else. He was sentenced to 50 years in prison. Stephen killed Chrystal because he didn't want her to move on with her life. He never wanted a divorce, and he still was in love with her and wanted to get back together with her. And he saw the cruise as his opportunity to do so. When he was uninvited, and when it was clear that Chrystal had moved on and was happy, he could not allow that to happen. Not only did he murder his wife, something she had feared for some time, he destroyed the lives of his children, who, as a result, essentially lost both of their parents. They were just 5 and 8 years old at the time of Crystal's murder. When the children were told of the horrific crime, Madden held his sister and they hugged, and he told her, "I love you, Maui, and I'll always take care of you." The children, who are now 13 and 10, live with one of Crystal's closest friends, who is deemed Madden and Maui's conservator, and are doing well despite the devastating loss of both of their parents. They, at this time, have chosen not to respond to their father in any capacity. And that is the end of the story. They are living a happy life, and they have turned into beautiful, happy children, despite losing their mom at a young age and losing their father to a horrific decision. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I will see you guys tomorrow. If you have any suggestions for any stories that you want to hear or want me to do a video on, I would love it if you would add that in the comments below. I have a couple in mind, but there's always cases that go unnoticed in mainstream media that a lot of people don't know about that are happening in your cities, your towns. And I would love to bring those stories to light, to bring the stories of small town to life, to a bigger platform. I've always had a passion for true crime, and so just embarking on this has caused me to really consider expanding to maybe another channel, but that's in later time. So for now, thanks for hanging out with me, and I bid you guys a fond farewell. Bye.